John here. So in this video I'm going to show you a thing that I like to do to improve my picking. Can be my legato as well, and basically works for pretty much anything except sweep picking, because sweep picking tends to be reliant upon specific numbers of notes per string to make the sweep picking work and be more efficient. But for legato and alternate picking, this concept is really helpful. It also helps you learn scales way better. So I call this cells, and you can also call it fragments, doesn't really matter. But basically, I just take a number of notes, and these are usually adjacent notes. So if we do this in A minor, for example, take that 3 note per string scale. Doesn't have to be 3 note per string though, it can be any arrangement of notes, as long as you stick to the techniques of alternate picking or legato. And then you pick a number, and let's say we do 4 in this case. So now I'm going to go up 4 notes. We get that right. And then I make that into a loop. So the most obvious loop then will be the kind of Paul Gilbert type. Just going back the same way we came. And obviously you can have different variations of this as well, but I think initially you have a lot of work to do if you apply this cells/fragments concepts to different scales, because it takes quite a while to go through all the different combinations. But let's just start where we're at so you can understand the concept and you can try it for yourself. So we have the first fragment here, or cell. We'll turn that into a loop. Now the second cell would be starting from the second note of the scale and go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we get another loop, but it's exactly the same loop melodically, even though it's different, a different part of the scale. But if we move up this here instead, you can see it's the same sequence, just following the notes of the scale, but the fingering is different. And then the third cell we can do here, starting on the third note of the string, would be this one. That would be the same thing as starting here. So practicing like this will help you being able to play whatever sequence of notes you want to play, regardless of the fingerings. Because if you only practice this, and you happen to have to play this, that feels very different. So this is a very good way of, again, systematically going through things on the instrument. And why is that important then? Well, it's so you basically not going to paint yourself into a technique corner where you only do things a certain way. Or you probably heard like certain guitar players say like, well, I do this lick, but I have to start it on an upstroke, or I have to start on a downstroke, or whatever. And I think that's unnecessary, because you don't need to go about it that way. Because if you have that way of doing things, it's going to be very hard to be spontaneous and being able to improvise, or for that matter, learn things on the instrument at all, because you're going to be so boxed into a certain way of doing it. And I think that's, like I said, unnecessary, because if you put in the same amount of time but you do it in a more systematic way, I think you'll get a better result in the long run. So with that said, let's go back to the sequence again. So that's the cells we have. So this one, and this one. Because then we go to the next string where you have 3 notes again on this string. So the only thing that's going to change is the fingering is going to change a bit, because you're going to have different fingerings depending on the scale shape. So those are all the cells going up the scale. Now, the way that I prefer to practice this is to use what I call the looping practice method. And I've talked about this before, but in case you missed it, basically you have the loop. And if you think of the loop as a clock, so you would have, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 12, 3, 6, 9, and then 12, for example. Then you can start on each point, so 12 to 12. You can start on 3 to 3, 6 to 6, 9 to 9. So you have different starting points, but you still do the same lap, so to speak. And the same thing goes here. So and in this case, we're going to have 6 starting points because we have 6 notes in the loop. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the idea here. So basically, we have 6 different loops we can practice. And when I practice this myself, I don't sit there and do a ton of reps for each loop because it's unnecessary. You can just keep going instead because you're going to repeat this in different ways on all the string groups anyway. So the reps will amass as you go through this exercise. So you don't need to sit there for like 5 minutes for each loop. That's overkill. So basically, I would do it this way. So I would do maybe 2 to 3 reps like this. 1, 2, 3, and then I end on the beginning of the 4th rep in this case, and I always close the loop. So if I go from 12, I always go back to 12. That's very important because the brain really likes that sort of sense of completion, so you can really see the loop as its own thing. And talking about the brain, this is why it's so important to practice this way, because you see things from all different angles when you do this. So you're not going to be surprised when you sit down and try to improvise and you only practice one lick like that, if you want to call that a lick. And then when you try to apply it in a song or a solo, and just so happens that you start on this note, you might feel like you can't play it. But if you've gone through all these combinations, you're going to feel way more free on the instrument. So, then I will start on the 2nd note, 3rd note, 4th, 5th, 6th. And I'm done with that fragment or cell. And then I start on the next one. So we have this. And again, we have 6 notes because it's exactly the same, it's just a different fingering. So we have 6 loops. Third, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So really try this yourself right now as you watch this, and I think you'll really see that it can be quite challenging and a bit confusing at first when you try this if you haven't done it before. And as far as starting on whatever pick stroke I'm starting on, I tend to start on the same pick stroke, so whether I choose to start on a downstroke for all of the loops or an upstroke doesn't really matter, because if you start on the same pick stroke, every other variation will turn the picking around, which is very important. So again, you can start on down, but do down on all of them, or start on up and do up on all of them. All right, so the last fragment here, or cell. Again, we have 6 notes, that's the first loop. Second, the 3rd, the 4th, 5th, and the 6th. And then we restart here with fragment number 1. And go through the same thing, number 2, number 3. And fingering here, you can decide if you want to do this, do this. I will probably do this one because it's more applicable to this particular loop. So feel free to change the fingering so it works with the loop you're playing, even though if you play the whole scale, you probably would play the 4th finger here, but you don't necessarily need to sit and repeat that like this. So adapt the fingering so it fits the purpose. That's an important thing as well. All right, so give this a try and do it in all different positions, obviously. Meaning you have, if you do the major scale or the minor scale of the related modes, you will have 7 different fingerings. So that could be a good goal, to go through all 7 fingerings maybe even in one day. Then you have a really good picking workout. Or just decide that, well, I don't want to spend too much time on this, so maybe you decide to do one fingering per day, and then you will find that over a week you've covered all 7. So there's different ways that you can approach this, but if you do try it and you really focus on good reps here, because again, we only do 2 to 3 reps of each variation, you'll find that your technique will get way better quite quickly actually. So it's a very good thing to work on. And expect it to be a bit weird at first, starting on these different points of the different sequences, because that's the point of it. So you probably find certain combinations harder than others, so don't feel that you need to play them all at the same tempo. Initially you might have to really slow down certain of these variations that you haven't, tackled before. But that's all part of the learning process, and actually when you find something like that, that's a good thing, because that's where you really have the most to gain from any kind of exercise. Back in the day, I used to have real issues with fast alternate picking when it came to 2 notes per string. I was fine with 3 notes per string, but the 2 notes per string thing was a bit harder to crack. So if you struggle with fast alternate picking as well, and you don't know what to practice or for how long, I've created the perfect solution for you in the form of the Pentatonic Picking Power Book. So in this book, you'll find a daily workout that will not only help your pentatonic picking, but will also upgrade your overall alternate picking technique. So it contains basically the same exercises I use myself to develop my picking abilities, as well as numerous students over the years that I've given the same exercise to with great results. So I know these exercises work as long as you put in the work. So it's not a quick solution or quick fix. It will still take a lot of work, but at least you have a very easy to follow routine. So if you're up for a big alternate picking upgrade in 2024, I cannot think of a better start. It's $9 and I think it's very underpriced, but I did it that way just so as many people as possible could be helped by this. So check that out.